I'm joined by Texas Senator Ted Cruz. As I was just telling the senator, we share at least one thing in common, Senator, and that is that we both love your dad.
Well, Bob, thank you very much. My dad has been my hero my whole life.
I can see why. Having escaped Castro's Cuba when we saw the communist takeover there, when you hear his message, when you're hearing it firsthand from somebody who has lived through it, it truly resonates.
Well, when you've seen freedom taken away, it's very real and it's very personal. I'm reminded of a few years back, April 15th, 2009, right when the Tea Parties were starting all over the country. Mm-hmm. My dad spoke at the very first Dallas Tea Parties, about 30,000 people in downtown Dallas, Texas. And my father stood up and he told a story. He said, when I was a young man, I saw a young, charismatic leader come to power. Mm-hmm. And he promised hope and change. And he promised to redistribute the wealth.
This all sounds very familiar.
Well, I took an excerpt of my dad's speech. I put it up on Facebook. Mm-hmm. And a left-leaning journalist wrote a long blog post where he said, this is ridiculous, this is terrible, to compare Barack Obama to Fidel Castro, that's too much.
Right.
And it was late one night, it was probably midnight, 1 in the morning. I was reading all the comments from all these lefties who were just hyperventilating. They were getting more and more upset.
Right.
And I did something I've never done before, never done since. I signed up online with my own name, and I commented. I said, I've been reading all of these hysterical comments about my father's speech. I just want to point out one thing. If you look at what my dad said, he never once mentioned the words Barack Obama. Now, what does it say about you that you hear what Fidel Castro did and you immediately think that's got to be Obama?
Yeah, they leapt to that conclusion on their own, did they not? It's interesting, Senator, because I know you're a big fan of the Constitution, which calls for those who serve in the military and the government to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States from enemies foreign and domestic. And I look at a story today at Breitbart.com, MSM GOP establishment team up to target Ted Cruz. This is domestic enemies in a sense.
Well, unfortunately, it's a manifestation of what I call the Washington cartel.
Yeah.
And the Washington cartel is career politicians in both parties.
Yes.
Who get in bed with the lobbyists and the special interests, and they grow and grow and grow government. And it's why people are so frustrated. We keep winning elections, and then nothing changes.
Correct.
And we were told in 2010, if only we had the House of Representatives.
Right. Imagine what we could do.
And we rose up in incredible numbers. We won the House. Very little change.
Yes.
Then we were told the problem is the Senate. It's Harry Reid. So in 2014, millions of us rose up, won an historic victory, won 9 Senate seats, retired Harry Reid as majority leader. And what on earth has changed?
Nada.
You think about what's happened. It's been about 8 months we've had a Republican majority. First thing we did after the election is we came back, Republican leadership, joined with Harry Reid to pass a $1 trillion cromnibus bill filled with pork and corporate welfare.
Not to mention funding for Obamacare.
Then we funded Obamacare. Then we funded Obama's executive amnesty. Then we funded Planned Parenthood. And then Republican leadership took up the lead, confirming Loretta Lynch as Attorney General.
This is not opposition. This is enabling.
You are exactly right. Which one of those decisions would have been one iota different if it had been Harry Reid and the Democrats?
Virtually none.
And it's why people are frustrated. It's why also in the presidential race, I think Republicans are looking for someone that has a demonstrated record of standing up to the Washington cartel, not just standing up to the Democrats.
Right.
But when have you taken on your own party's leadership, and stood with the American people and the Constitution? That's the only way we're going to change what's happening in Washington.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were really encouraged during the first debate on Fox when you called out the actions of Mitch McConnell.
Well, there is a time for truth, and I think the truth has power. And the reality is right now on issue after issue, we have the McConnell-Reid leadership team.
Right.
Where they're not representing different parties. They're representing the party of Washington.
And sadly, the same thing's happening in the House with John Boehner.
Right. So let me give an example of that.
All right.
Planned Parenthood. These videos that have come out, they're horrific, they're disturbing. Now, if we had a shred of integrity in the U.S. Department of Justice, they would have already opened an investigation, because these videos show senior Planned Parenthood officials essentially confessing to multiple felonies.
Which is violating federal law.
It is indeed. And indeed, one of the things that I have promised, if I'm elected president, on the first day in office, I will instruct the Department of Justice to open an investigation into Planned Parenthood and to prosecute any and all criminal activity. But here's the point on Planned Parenthood. In another month, Congress is going to be back.
Right.
And we're going to have a battle. Now, it is my view, not one penny of taxpayer money should go to fund Planned Parenthood, which these videos show it appears to be right now an ongoing criminal enterprise.
And I think most people with a conscience would certainly agree with that.
If you watch those videos, it's the only conclusion you can come to. Here's the sad reality. Republican leadership and Harry Reid and Nancy Pelosi are all agreed
right.
that they want to go forward and continue funding Planned Parenthood. They'll schedule a show vote. So we had a show vote a month ago where every Republican voted one way, every Democrat voted the other. And part of it is the Washington cartel. They look down on the grassroots. They think we're gullible.
Right.
But when Mike Lee and I stood up and tried to force through a real vote that would have consequences, it was Republican leadership that blocked us from a real vote to defund Planned Parenthood. And this fall, it's already Republican leadership who have declared their intention to oppose any meaningful effort to defund Planned Parenthood. This is why people are so frustrated.
Yeah, they are. And I hear the anger expressed in calls to my program and others throughout the day. They really have just reached the saturation point with continuing to have promise after promise essentially ignored by the very people who sent him back on the premise of actually doing something constructive, and yet nothing happens. And the people back home say, look, we just don't get it. We know what the difference between right and wrong is.
Well, and Bob, I think that is exactly why, in the couple of weeks that followed the Republican debate in Cleveland, our presidential campaign has seen extraordinary momentum. We had fundraising exploded. In the 100 hours that followed the debate, we raised $1.1 million as people all over the country went to tedcruz.org, contributed online. We've had over 225,000 contributions from every state in the union. And the momentum on the ground is extraordinary. And I think it all boils down to one word: trust. People are tired of politicians who say one thing and do another. And what I've tried to do in office has been simple. Tell the truth and do what I said I would do. Well,
and if you look at the polling data, those that are doing the best are those that are associated not with what goes on inside the Washington bubble, those that have been encapsulated by Potomac fever for decades, but those that are essentially on the outside.
You are exactly right. I'm reminded of when we launched our campaign back on March 23rd at Liberty University. In the days following that, the New York Times opined, Cruz cannot win because the Washington elites despise him.
There's a very good reason why you should be running in the first place.
That's exactly right. I've joked. I kind of thought that was the whole point of the campaign.
Senator Ted Cruz, he is one of the featured speakers tonight here at Jeff Duncan's Faith and Freedom Barbecue. Senator, best of luck to you. God bless.
Thank you, Bob. God bless you, and thank you for standing up and speaking the truth. It is needed now more than ever.
It is. It's an obligation that we take seriously. Thank you very much. Senator Ted Cruz here at Jeff Duncan's Faith and Freedom Barbecue.